It was a bitter February morning in Baldwin Borough, Pittsburgh. The air was heavy with grief, the kind that seems to freeze time itself. Family, friends and neighbors gathered, their hearts fractured, to say goodbye to a young mother whose life had been stolen far too soon. This was no ordinary funeral. It was a day drenched in sorrow, but also a day wrapped in cruel irony. Among the mourners was Ria's 1-year-old daughter, too young to understand the gravity of the loss. Her small hand clutched at the coat of the man holding her, the man everyone thought was just another heartbroken soul in the crowd. But appearances can be deceiving. Standing amidst the crowd, shedding tears and whispering condolences, was the man who would soon be charged with Ria's brutal murder, her child's own father. It was a betrayal so chilling, so calculated, that it sent shockwaves through the community and left everyone questioning how they could have missed the sign. But this isn't just a story about a young life cut tragically short. It's a story about deception, manipulation, and the darkest corners of human nature. How does a father, a partner, become the very monster he was supposed to protect against? And how could a community, united in grief, be so blindsided by the truth? Stay with us as we delve into the life of Ria Remy Griffin, a life full of promise, joy, and love, and uncover the chilling details of how it all came to a devastating end. Ria Remy Griffin wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a beacon of light to those who knew her, a woman who wore her heart on her sleeve and found joy in even the smallest moments. To her followers on social media, she was an inspiration, a young mother radiating strength, resilience, and authenticity. But behind the scenes, Ria's journey was one of incredible determination. At just 19 years old, Ria embraced the challenges of motherhood head-on, balancing the demands of raising a child while pursuing her own dreams. She often spoke about the importance of perseverance and gratitude. Her posts shared glimpses into her life, celebrating every milestone her daughter reached and encouraging other young mothers to never give up, no matter how hard it seemed. Her friends described her as someone who led with kindness, someone who could make you laugh even on your worst days. She had a way of seeing the best in people even when life didn't always show her the same grace. And through it all, her love for her daughter was the unwavering anchor that kept her going. Ria wasn't just a mother, she was her daughter's greatest cheerleader. Every laugh, every small achievement was celebrated with unmatched joy. She would often say, "I want her to grow up knowing that she is loved endlessly." And that's exactly what Ria gave her. A life filled with love. But as much as Ria shared, there were struggles she chose to keep private. Challenges that even her closest friends only began to notice in fleeting moments. Behind her radiant smile was a young woman balancing an invisible weight. Ria's friends occasionally saw glimpses of her struggles, moments when her smile faltered or when she seemed distracted. But Ria rarely let her personal challenges define her. She was determined to protect her daughter's world, even if it meant carrying the weight of her own alone. What makes someone like Ria truly remarkable is the strength to face life's storms with unwavering resolve. So let me ask you, what's a quality you admire most in young parents who navigate life's challenges with resilience? Let us know in the comments below. Ria's story is one of love, resilience, and light, but it's also a reminder of how quickly that light can be stolen when shadows creep in unnoticed. Let's take a closer look at her life and the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. Ria met Adeline Itongwa at the age of 18. It was the start of a whirlwind romance. They seemed inseparable, two young people navigating life together, their love story playing out for all to see on social media. From matching outfits to sweet captions filled with heart emojis, Ria and Adeline's posts painted the picture of a couple deeply in love and ready to take on the world together. But life isn't always as picture-perfect as it seems online. Just a year into their relationship, Ria discovered she was pregnant. While the news brought immense joy, it also marked a turning point in their journey together. The arrival of their daughter was a moment of celebration. Ria's posts from this time reflected her immense pride and excitement. She wrote about the love she felt as a mother and how her daughter had given her life new purpose. But for Adeline, the transition into parenthood wasn't as seamless. Friends began to notice changes in their relationship. While Ria embraced motherhood with open arms, pouring her heart into her daughter's milestones, Adeline seemed to pull away. The once lively and playful partner became increasingly distant, his presence in Ria's posts growing sporadic. Despite the growing divide, Ria remained committed to ensuring her daughter had both parents in her life. She believed in giving her daughter a sense of family, even as she began to question whether Adeline was capable of offering the stability and love their child deserved. But what Ria couldn't have known was that the cracks in their relationship were more than just the growing pains of young parenthood. Behind closed doors, troubling signs were beginning to emerge. Signs that her friends would later say they wished they had paid closer attention to. Relationships are never simple, but when the signs of trouble appear, how can we tell what's just a rough patch and what's something far darker? If you noticed a friend struggling in silence, what would you do to help? Let us know in the comments. In the weeks leading up to her tragic death, Ria's world seemed to shrink. Her once vibrant and frequent social media posts became few and far between, each one focusing solely on her daughter. To outsiders, it looked like she was simply busy being a mother. But to those who knew her, something felt off. Ria's friends noticed the subtle changes. Her usually bubbly responses turned into short, distracted messages. Her posts, once filled with joy and positivity, took on a cryptic tone, as if she was trying to send a message without saying too much. Behind the scenes, Ria was dealing with a growing storm. Her co-parenting relationship with Adeline had become increasingly strained. Friends reported that Adeline's messages had grown more demanding, more aggressive, especially regarding visitation with their daughter, and Ria, always protective, had begun to voice her concern. Ria confided in a close friend that Adeline's behavior was becoming unpredictable. She mentioned feeling uneasy during custody exchanges, even hinting that she was worried about her safety. But Ria, ever hopeful, continued to believe in co-parenting for the sake of her daughter. February 9th, 2024, began like any other day for Ria. She ran errands, played with her daughter, and even sent a few texts to friends. But as the evening approached, something changed. Surveillance footage shows Ria returning to her apartment around 7 p.m. She was carrying a small bag of groceries and her daughter in her arms. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive. Neighbors reported hearing what sounded like firecrackers around 9:15 p.m., followed by silence. No one called the police. It wasn't until the following morning, when Ria failed to answer calls from her mother, that a welfare check was requested. What officers found would shock an entire community. Ria's story is heartbreaking, but it's also a reminder of the warning signs that can often go unnoticed. If you had a friend expressing concerns about their safety, how would you support them? What could communities do to prevent tragedies like this from happening? Share your thoughts in the comments. The morning of February 10th, 2024, began quietly in Baldwin Borough. But at Ria Remy Griffin's apartment, the silence was broken by the arrival of police officers conducting a welfare check. What they found behind her door would send shockwaves through the community. Inside, Ria was found lifeless on the floor of her living room. She had been shot multiple times, a brutal and calculated act of violence. Her 1-year-old daughter was discovered unharmed in another room, sitting quietly amidst the chaos. There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was personal. News of the crime spread quickly, and questions began to arise. Who could have done this? Why would anyone want to harm Ria, a devoted mother and beloved friend? As detectives began their investigation, the evidence painted a chilling picture. Digital evidence quickly pointed to Adeline Itangwa. His text messages revealed escalating frustration in the hours leading up to Ria's death. Surveillance footage confirmed his car had been in the parking lot that evening, and neighbors recalled hearing muffled voices arguing, followed by what sounded like gunshots. Detectives pieced together the events of that evening. Adeline had arrived unannounced, determined to confront Ria. What began as a heated argument escalated into something far more sinister. By the time it was over, Ria's life had been cut short in a horrifying act of betrayal. Ria's murder wasn't just a crime. It was a profound betrayal. The man who had once shared her life, who had laughed with her, danced with her, and fathered her child, had become the very person who took it all away. How do we make sense of such a horrifying act? How does someone who once claimed to love you turn into your worst nightmare? And what can we do as a society to prevent tragedies like this from happening again? Share your thoughts in the comments. Ria Remy Griffin's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a call to action. Her story touched the hearts of her community, sparking outrage, grief, and a collective determination to ensure that her life and her untimely death would not be forgotten. Just days after Ria Remy Griffin's life was tragically cut short, her family and friends gathered to say their final goodbyes. The air was thick with sorrow as mourners struggled to come to terms with the loss of someone so young, so vibrant, and so full of promise. Among those mourning was Adeline Itangwa, the father of Ria's child, and, as the world would later learn, the man responsible for her death. Standing there with their 1-year-old daughter in his arms, Adeline shed tears, offered condolences, and even consoled members of Ria's family. To those present, he seemed like a grieving father, a man grappling with the loss of the mother of his child. But behind the mask of sorrow was a chilling truth. Adeline's composure wasn't that of a grieving partner. It was that of a man trying to conceal the dark reality of what he had done. Perhaps the most haunting moment of the day was Adeline's eulogy. In a calm, measured voice, he spoke of Ria's kindness, her love for their daughter, and the joy she brought into the lives of those around her. He even described her as the best mother anyone could ask for. For those listening, his words were a touching tribute. For the detectives observing from the sidelines, they were an unsettling performance. As the funeral ended and mourners began to disperse, Adeline continued his act. He posted tributes to Ria online, shared photos of her with heartfelt captions, and even reached out to investigators, inquiring about the progress of the case. To the untrained eye, he appeared as a man desperate for answers. But to those piecing together the evidence, his behavior raised red flags. What Adeline didn't realize was that detectives were closing in. The evidence against him was mounting. Surveillance footage, text messages, and witness testimonies were all painting a damning picture. And his actions at the funeral, meant to portray grief and innocence, only added to their suspicions. How often do we take people at face value? How often do we assume that a grieving face can't hide a guilty heart? Could you have seen through Adeline's facade? Let us know in the comments. As mourners grieved and Ria's loved ones tried to make sense of the tragedy, detectives were working tirelessly to uncover the truth. From the start, the case was anything but ordinary. The lack of forced entry and the untouched valuables in Ria's apartment pointed to a targeted attack. likely by someone she knew, and one name kept appearing in their investigation: Adeline Itongwa. The first major breakthrough came from surveillance footage. Cameras at Ria's apartment complex captured Adeline's car arriving around 8:45 p.m. on February 9th, just over an hour before neighbors reported hearing what sounded like gunshots. The same cameras recorded his car leaving the complex shortly after 9:30 p.m. This footage placed Adeline at the scene during the crucial window of time when Ria was killed. But detectives needed more than just his presence. They needed proof that tied him directly to the crime. Adeline's messages painted a clear picture of a man growing increasingly desperate and angry. The last message he sent to Ria just minutes before her death read, "You'll regret this." It was a threat, and soon it became a reality. Investigators also found no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Ria had willingly opened the door for her killer. This detail further pointed to someone she trusted. Someone like Adeline. As the evidence mounted, detectives began to close in on Adeline. Witnesses came forward, recalling his erratic behavior at the funeral and his seemingly calculated attempts to stay involved in the investigation. One neighbor even reported seeing him pacing near Ria's apartment on the evening of the crime. By this point, it was clear to detectives that Adeline wasn't just a grieving father. He was their prime suspect. But they needed to act quickly before he had a chance to flee or cover his tracks. On February 15th, 2024, just 5 days after Ria's funeral, police arrested Adeline Itongwa at his home. He was calm at first, denying any involvement, but his composure began to crack as officers laid out the evidence against him. The man who had stood at Ria's funeral, holding their child and consoling her grieving family, was now in custody for her murder. His duality, the grieving father and the calculated killer, left everyone who knew him reeling. What makes someone capable of such deception? How does a person go from being a partner and a parent to a murderer? And how can communities better protect individuals like Ria before it's too late? Ria Remy Griffin's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a call to action. Her story touched the hearts of her community, sparking outrage, grief, and a collective determination to ensure that her life and her untimely death would not be forgotten. In the weeks following her death, Ria's community came together in an extraordinary way. Vigils were held, memorials were erected, and support networks were formed to rally around her grieving family. Especially her 1-year-old daughter, now left without her mother. Ria's mother, now the guardian of her granddaughter, became a fierce advocate for change. She spoke openly about the dangers of domestic violence and the challenges faced by parents in custody disputes, vowing to turn her family's pain into a force for good. A mother's fight for permanent custody of Ria's daughter was not just about legal guardianship, it was about creating a safe and loving environment for a child who had already endured so much. And her advocacy extended far beyond her family. Inspired by Ria's story, she began working with local organizations to push for stronger protections for vulnerable parents. Out of the darkness of Ria's death came a beacon of hope. Advocacy groups used her story to shine a light on the gaps in the system, pushing for better resources, legal reforms, and support for parents navigating dangerous custody disputes. The fight for justice continued. Ria's daughter grew up surrounded by the love and strength of the family her mother had cherished. For those closest to Ria, every smile, every milestone was a bittersweet reminder of the woman they had lost and the legacy she had left behind. Ria's story reminds us of the urgent need to address the warning signs of domestic violence and the challenges of custody disputes. What steps can communities take to better protect parents and children in these situations? How can we ensure that no one else suffers the same fate as Ria? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Ria Remy Griffin's life was filled with love, strength and light. Though her time was tragically short, her story continues to inspire change, bringing communities together and giving a voice to those who have been silenced. Ria's legacy lives on, not just in her daughter, but in the hearts of everyone who fights for a safer world. Ria's legacy lives on, in her daughter's laughter, in the advocacy sparked by her story, and in the hearts of those who refuse to let her memory fade. Her life, though far too brief, serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of protecting and cherishing one another. What can we do to honor Ria's memory? How can we ensure that no one else suffers the same fate? These are the questions we must carry forward, turning her story into action, her loss into lasting change. Thank you very much for watching. If Ria's story has touched you, please like, comment and subscribe to help us spread awareness. Resources for domestic violence prevention and custody dispute support can be found in the description below. Together, we can make a difference.